Intro. Malls are an important part of small business and being a social place for people, which is why it's sad that they're kind of going extinct as of recently. They are this important piece of infrastructure that needs to be brought back through incentives and other ways to bring back the social aspects of malls. Since a lot of the time now, people don't really go to malls and just do online shopping because it's more convenient and it's just how people get their stuff. Not having to go out and it's just right there on my phone or computer, yeah, I would want that, please. It's convenient. That's just the better option. But it also causes loneliness because it is that basic option that doesn't cause you to go outside and also doesn't force you to be around people because that's socialization, that's yucky. So, of course, it's grown, but it leaves this gaping hole for a social or really third place in people's lives. So, of course, loneliness grows and all that. So, there has to be a way to bring malls back. But we should first note the history of how they became so popular in the first place. Malls started out as bazaars in the Middle East, with the first mall being built in Paris, which isn't in the Middle East, but it took inspiration from it. It's called the Passage du Car. I probably butchered that because that's French. It was these long lines of stores where they're basically everywhere. It's like a line, you just walk down it, and everywhere there's stores. They're still around today in a way, so you can just look it up. But malls are really like arcade-style malls. Started to pop up around a lot of Western countries like the UK or France, and eventually some in the US. Arcades are the ones with the big glass panel on the ceiling that let you see the sky from inside. You know the ones, like if you're walking down the hall inside, you can see the sky when you look up because of the window. That evolved to be in different spaces over the 20th century. Mainly in places like in suburbia, places not really in the city. And this is because of the things like the highway cities and cars also being a lot more common than when they first appeared. Because that's just where most malls are today. Malls were often in the downtown areas of certain towns, like the highway cities, mainly on the outskirts. Like, you take a highway exit, you get there, because that's how it is. That's where they put the malls so that you can get to them more easily. They were also made more pedestrian friendly, when you get there, of course, to be walked around them, because people have to walk. They can't drive from business to business. And so you have these big buildings off the highways. And these are the more modern malls because they didn't start popping up until around the 1950s, like around mid-1950s. And these are like the real shopping malls, quote. These are the shopping malls that have a ceiling and they're actually all indoors. It's not like a passageway because these are actually a brick building or whatever it's made out of. It's just put in there, you walk in there, and there's no outside light except for the doorway that you enter and exit through. And this is where all the small businesses and stuff come from in a mall, these shopping malls, because of how they're built. Now, some malls are built, but there's not as much as there was in the early days, and that's for many reasons. And that's probably because malls right now are also really relegated to some walkers, people who just like walking around in the mall, back and forth and back and forth. And the occasional mall staple store, Hot Topic, or just Spencer's, that's just what they do. Malls started to decline, mainly around the time of COVID-19, which makes sense. You know, people can't go outside, and you can't really go to a business, or really make money to pay rent if people are getting sick, and it is a pandemic. And this also is because of the online shopping. Online shopping was caused by this quarantine, this mass effect of, whoa, guys, I'm in my house, and look at that, I can go and shop right there. It's easy. It's relatively easy compared to I have to drive to the mall. You gotta be kidding me. And so shopping malls started losing shops, and therefore wouldn't be able to draw people in the way they used to, because if you're like a ghost town, nobody's gonna want to live in you. That's just how it is. People do not go to dead malls anymore. They go to like one store. That's it. That's just how dead malls are. Most products would be bought like somewhere else instead, with only like some staple stores remaining, as like mentioned, like Hot Topic or Spencer's, because you see those in every mall. That's just how it is. They're like a canon store. And to know how to bring the idea of malls back, we need to know what a mall is actually supposed to be like, first off. When you walk into a mall, what are the staples that you are going to see? Assuming you're in the United States, because that's where most malls are now, you would probably see a Macy's or any of like the anchor stores. Anchor stores are those big brand stores that take up way more space than any other store in the mall. So like Macy's or Nordstrom or any of those stores, those big giant stores you see in the malls, because they just have to be there. I don't know why. And these bring in the customers. You also have to have a long line of stores. These stores can be whatever you want to be. That's up to the owner of the mall. That's freedom of business. Usually, it's a clothing store or one of the mall staples. Staples like Hot Topic, Spencer's, Earthbound, and all those ones you just know. You just know they're going to be there, and you kind of look for them, so you expect it. You expect them to be in the mall because it's not a mall without them. You also have to have somewhere to eat. This is usually done in the places like food courts, where there is like every restaurant and a half, because it's like this big square. It's a square of food in restaurants. Mainly not like some of like the big ones like Chili's. It's not those types of restaurants. It's usually fast food, but it depends on what type of mall you're going to, because some are just different. And most of the time they have boba. So some malls just have McDonald's and those big corporate businesses, like those fast food chains you know you're gonna see. Some of them have smaller chains, but some of them, in rare instances, because you never see it, you just never see it anymore, they have those small local businesses there in the food court. That would be surprising, because, whoa, that means a mall is good. In some way, not really too much, because some places have that, but their environment is struggling. This is so you get the entire day done in this place. This is why the food court's there. This is also done by having a lot of businesses that fill those voids that you have throughout the day. And if you're bored, you can go to an arcade. If you're hungry, you can go to a restaurant and repeat, because that's how you spend the whole day there until they close. Because, whoa, that's entertainment and that's food. The staples of a mall. Now, occasionally, you'll find that sometimes there's little stands in the middle of the corridor where you walk. This is where all those shoe shiners and those scammers are located at. Never fall for these scams. They aren't worth it, because the products are overall, they're just useless. They are. They don't do anything, and they're more expensive. It's like a tariff, but malls. These stands aren't in every mall, of course, just in some of the larger ones, or the ones that actually have business, that have the room for them. Also in the busier malls, because, whoa, you can get more people to scam. The mall will also probably have escalators or something if it's 2 floors. A lot of the time, these are near the food court for obvious reasons, because we need to get people at the food court. That's just how business works. And so, if you were there to be a nerd or a geek, for example, you can do that, since there's always at least one nerd store in every big mall somehow. The stores like FYE or Newberry Comics or whatever store sells those figures or those movies. If there isn't one, it's probably not a real mall. It's not a real mall unless it has one of these stores. That's just how the rules work, bro. I don't make them. That's just how it feels to be in a real mall. So the question is, what can be done to improve malls? Since a lot of them have these vacant spots and these empty walls, one of the things that malls need to escape from is the feeling that it's corporate and just like an advertisement place. One way to do this is by filling in all those vacant spots with more things that feel humanized. Humanized meaning not all these big corporations or anything that is just trying to squeeze money out of you and price gouge you. Actual, real, human small businesses. So, small businesses, like local ones, would be good here, but there's not a lot opening lately because businesses are doomed to fail at this point. And this is when there needs to be something that equals out the big corporations or anchor stores and the small businesses, probably with like a different tax code for them. The mall would have to be owned by the people of the nearby community. There's a lot of empty lots that do not get filled up, which means that it's going to be bland. The area is just going to be bland. These areas are completely closed. There's a vacancy sign or a sign that says contact us, or sometimes they just fill it in. They just fill in a wall. These need to be filled by anything but concrete. Anything would be better than nothing, but rent for it needs to be lowered. It needs to be lowered for a lot of these malls. You telling me you pay that much in rent? No. That's crazy talk. For a small local business? No, that's stupid. The real reason businesses don't build in these places like malls is because they don't take risks. These risks are usually too high for them considering the price of rent. The rent in these places is usually $15 to $30 per square foot of area. That's crazy expensive considering the area of these stores being 1,500 square feet at least. That's a crazy price. That's like $7,500 minimum. That's a risk for people that they can't afford or can barely afford to risk because, sure, that's per year, but also it could add up to about like $30,000 a year. Nobody has that money. Nobody who's local and doesn't own a business has that type of money to start a small local business because it doesn't exist. With that much money, you might as well build somewhere else. Those vacant spots are like having an abandoned home just sitting next to where you live. It'll just bring down the chances of people possibly thinking of living there and make that go down and down, but it applies for shops. Businesses need more incentives to go to these places, but also empty spaces should be filled up by other things. When we think of malls, we think of businesses, sure, but we also shouldn't think of blank slates waiting to be filled. So that begs the question, what could go there? Many things, like a small food business if you wanted a business here, maybe, just maybe a garden if it's near a window, because some stores don't have windows, some stores do. But there's a lot of options on what you could do there to make it feel more human and more natural and less corporate. You could even have a place where you could just learn a new skill. You could just learn a new skill there if you wanted to, since the area is probably not being used. Just really anything could go there. And it just depends on the person who put something there. But it's all being blocked by this high rent, which is why nobody takes those risks. But the problem with malls modern malls boils down to the fact that more socializing is supposed to happen at a mall, and frankly, nobody has enough time anymore. Everyone has a job, then goes home to binge in every unhealthy habit ever. There just isn't enough time left in the day to go shopping or do fun things. This is why online shopping works well for most people. This needs to change. People need to have money in their pockets so that they can actually have free time. Not having little time because all of it is just trying to earn a profit to maybe survive. All the changes have come from external sources. Malls aren't dying because they're a bad idea. They're dying because big corporations are pushing people to live more isolated lives. It's lonely. It's lonely when you do online shopping because who are you seeing? You're not seeing the Amazon AI or whatever they have. Things need to be promoted to bring people to be social and actually build a community somewhere like a mall. This can usually be done by community events with things like food or prizes or whatever. But just anything at all as a way to introduce the area to the mall in the community to a social place like the mall. But even just lowering the prices for rent may just help the stores survive because they can maybe then take more risks. And people would feel like, oh, I can actually live and prosper here. And that would fill the mall up more. This can be done by making sure like big businesses cannot and must not be able to outprice the small businesses. This is always done temporarily, and it's just to cut throat to the competition in any area that they're in. Picture this, right? Picture frame. You're a big business and you just saw your ops having a lower price than you. You can afford to cut prices for 3 months until they go out of business. Do you do it? If you do, would you then raise prices after they go out of business and the 3-month period is over? You probably do, or just say it's a sale, because that's how business works. You also don't have to explain why you increased your prices afterwards. And you could just do it. Oh, profits. So in reality, it's about eliminating corrupt capitalism and bringing back this thing called common sense capitalism. It's what happened in the 1930s with the New Deal when corporations had to invest in their employees instead of only their shareholders. The societal pyramid was much different back when malls became a thing. It encouraged actual competition instead of non-competing, trying to claim a monopoly type of business. It wasn't like today where whoever can afford to go lower for longer wins. And then prices go up afterwards because they own the market. It definitely needs to be stopped by making businesses explain why they have to raise prices. They need to be transparent with customers so that they get a better experience and can actually trust the places they shop at. Because you can't blindfold on shop at a place that will just not be transparent with you. Because transparency is always the most important part of business. But going back to how people don't feel like going to malls, a way to fix nobody going to malls is by making sure that malls are a treat. No more corporate stuff, no more corporate feeling. You gotta make it feel more natural. People do not want to go into like a cement block that's just placed in nature. It just feels unnatural. So the way to fix this, at least internally, is by adding nature and some natural parts to how it looks. So that you can see the outside. You can see the outside world and not be blank inside a box. Maybe some more glass ceilings throughout the main hallways of it, like the passageways. Just anything to fix that unnatural feeling that is like the cement cube. On the external side, make sure that the surrounding area isn't just roads or parking lots. There needs to be more public transportation of malls, like buses or maybe even a train, God forbid. The parking lots take up so much space compared to the actual mall. And there's no parking there. There's never any parking there. You always have to spend 10 minutes looking for a spot. Add buses, maybe even trains, so people won't be forced to go into a crowded parking lot. spending all day looking for a spot. You probably spend more time looking for a spot than you do the mall. There should be more spots for natural things and for walking instead of just trying to find a car, and most people see that as the hassle, which is why they don't go. They're not like, oh, I'm excited to find a parking spot. Nobody does that. Nobody does that at all. If you do, you're a psychopath. These will in turn have more people be able to go to these malls and stuff, probably causing people to have more free time because they're not paying off car loans or anything like that, because they'll have money and hopefully free time. Overall, malls have been around for a while, and even though they are declining, there is still a way to bring them back, so never lose hope. It requires a lot of change in not just how the malls are set up, but also in the system and the way of life that people have been used to living. But it is something that can come back. It isn't an ancient idea or anything of the sort, because they still are around in some way. So it's not like the dinosaurs. It's not like, whoa, I found a fossil. It's just a mall. But that's really about it. If you have any thoughts or ideas on how malls could come back, comment them down below if you want. Other than that, if you want to, please like and subscribe. Pretty please.